feeling a little bit unfulfilled, that I wasn't quite making the impact on the community or leaving the type of legacy that I wanted to leave. And it sounds morbid, but I kind of asked myself a question: if I got hit by a truck tomorrow and this was it, like, how would I be remembered? What was my true impact or lasting legacy? And now we have 50 to 60 guys that come back. And like you mentioned, we've been pretty blessed with the money we've been able to raise. We go from very humble, modest beginnings to last year, 340,000 raised after expenses. So that's pretty exciting. And
that just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful story.
It is.
Thanks to shows like yours and great people like you two, we have a chance to tell those stories and hopefully attract more people that might be in need of a little bit of help.
Welcome back to Counterpunch. This week, we have a pretty phenomenal guest, if I might say so myself. Brittany, tell us who we've got in the ring with us.
He's widely known as the voice of the Jayhawk sports casting for the University of Kansas. He just won an award in 2023 for Sportscaster of the Year. He's an author of multiple books. He serves many youth-based charities, including his own pediatric cancer organization, Rock Chalk Roundball Classic, which has raised over $1 million for local families. So we thought he would be a wonderful guest to have on with all the things that he's doing within our community. And that is Brian Hanni.
Hey, heck yeah. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Hey, ladies, thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate that.
Well, today we're going to stay in our ring of resiliency, chit-chatting. And Brian, since you're obviously deep in the sports world. And so our first kind of topic or thing we'd want to chat is like, how does resiliency kind of translate, for these athletes in particular and coaches, lessons on and off the field and court?
Well, I think if there's any real world example, without getting into the heavy stuff, if there's something we see on a day-to-day basis where it takes resiliency, it's going through the grind of a sports season where you have all kinds of pressure and expectation to perform, and setbacks come in the form of injury or adversity with a string of a couple of losses back to back. And suddenly, you're forced to be looking at yourself individually. What can I do better to help the overall team level go up? What can we do collectively to work more cohesively together to help the overall team trajectory? And I think sports is a great, modern day metaphor to see everyday examples of resiliency, the way athletes weather the storm of not just on the court defeat, but in a social media age where they have to put up with all kinds of criticism and negativity out there, how they're able to block that out, focus on what's truly important, pull together in a galvanizing way. I think there's some great lessons of resiliency through sports today. So, it may not be the heavy hitting stuff like you guys have dealt with as mothers, particularly you, Charlene, with your daughter's cancer battle. But, in terms of the lighter side of resiliency, I think our guys deal with a lot that forces them to be very resilient in charting upward toward achieving their dreams.
Absolutely. I agree with that completely.
So you've worked with a lot of athletes that have gone on to NBA, NFL, stuff like that, but you've also worked with these kids that have pediatric cancer. Is there a memorable story of resiliency that you could talk to us about and share? One that sticks in your mind?
I think every kid has a special story.
Yeah.
It's hard to pick out just one, but I think, from a Roundball Classic perspective, there's so many kids that have a chance, like Easton, to tackle cancer head on, beat it, and go on to live happy, healthy, productive lives. And there's other kids that unfortunately aren't so lucky, but we still learn a lot from their resiliency, just with the way they still have an encouragingly positive and upbeat attitude in the face of those circumstances, the toughness they show, the determination, and even if they don't win the fight in the end, the way they were able to maximize whatever time they had and be a source of strength and a beacon of hope to anybody and everybody around them. I see some of these kids that are 6 years old and all they've known for the last 2 years of their life is chemotherapy and being carted back and forth between their hometown and Children's Mercy or KU Med or wherever they're at. All they know is being poked and prodded and hooked up to all these machines, and yet they don't allow it to completely steal their joy. And they still have the biggest, brightest, most inspiring smile over the little things. And it makes me realize, as a 43-year-old who gets bent out of shape when the radio equipment doesn't work, or if something doesn't come in on time with a deadline to meet at work, man, our problems are small. And these kids' outlook and positivity is such an inspiration. So there's great stories of resiliency there, no matter what the ending of their cancer battle is. And truly, some of the most resilient warriors I've ever seen are these pint-sized little warriors that we get a chance to celebrate every June with the Rock Chalk Roundball Classic. In the 16 years we've been doing this, we've been able to impact over 100 families. And I can certainly give you individual examples of what certain kids have gone through. But I think the number one common denominator in all of their stories is that these kids are way stronger than we can ever even begin to imagine. And their positivity and their determination, when for many of them, all they've known is a cancer battle, man, that's so impressive. And that resilience to keep fighting, when we have so little on our day-to-day plates that we seem to make into a much bigger deal than what it actually is. These kids are in the fight of their lives. And I just think I draw so much inspiration in seeing their strength, their toughness, their resilience in the face of that. And it really puts my problems in perspective and make the rest of us have it.
I love that. I couldn't agree more. And Brian, we, obviously round ball is a really fantastic thing locally for the Kansas City, Lawrence, Topeka area. But for our listeners nationwide, why don't you give a quick rundown on just what the Round Ball Classic is, so that they know this wonderful thing we keep referring to. They're going to go home and Google it. And why don't you give them a little quick recap of what it is?
Thanks for the chance to talk about that. This was a labor of love that kind of turned into a passion project. And now it's the most fulfilling thing in my life that we get a chance to do every year. It's a celebrity charity basketball weekend every June, where we bring back 50 to 60 former KU celebrities, most of which are basketball alums, but we get football guys. We've had a couple of ESPN Sports Center anchors, 2 members of CBS's Survivor. We've had a welterweight boxing champion. We've had a lot of folks play in this game. Started with a game. It's now a gala and also a bowling event. We've had golf as well over the years. It's kind of morphed to fit the interests of our donor base, but also the talents and interests of the celebrities that come back. But the best part of it is, as cool as it may be to have 10 or 12 NBA guys running up and down the floor in this lighthearted Harlem Globetrotter type pace of play all-star game, the true stars of the show are these kids. And you have seen that firsthand with Easton, and we've certainly seen that with so many great kids over the years who get a chance to have their names announced with the lights turned off and a player tunnel is formed, and they come running down the tunnel, giving high fives, and you have the PA guy belting out with the same enthusiasm you'd hear at Allen Fieldhouse or in an NBA arena at guard, standing in at 3 tall, a 6-year-old from Topeka, whatever the case may be. And they belt out their names. And, that to me is the highlight every year, no matter how much money we raise, which goes to all these families directly, or no matter how exciting the game is, if it's a nail biter, neck and neck or whatever, the best 5 minutes are when the kids get to be the stars of the show. And, for those 5 minutes, they're not thinking about everything we described earlier, the chemotherapy, the different treatments, in some cases, amputations these kids have had to deal with. They're not thinking about that. They're getting celebrated by these players, picked up to sit on their shoulders. Bill Self's bouncing a little girl on his knee as they watch the game together, and she's having the time of her life. And, for mom and dad, when that check comes in that we're able to deliver thanks to the generosity of our donors and our patrons, that's obviously hopefully a huge relief for them. But for the kids, the cool part of the whole thing is just being the star of the show and being treated like one of the basketball teammates of these players, not treated like a kid that, is having to sit on the side because their life story is a little bit different than a quote unquote regular kid, having to sit out from all the fun stuff that they normally miss out on because they might be immunocompromised, or maybe their cancer treatment schedule happens to fall during the day-to-day hours of a school day or a field trip or whatever, we make sure the date works with them and we get them there and we love on them and we celebrate them and they feel like rock stars on that particular night. And that's always the highlight for me each and every year. But as Brittany alluded to, we've had a chance to raise almost 1.5 million in our first 16 years. And now that allows us to impact more than just the 5 or 6 primary beneficiary families that you hear the stories of. We get a chance to impact about 20 more families over the course of the year in what we call the Round Ball Benevolence Fund. And through that, whether it's football season, basketball, baseball, softball, whatever, we invite other families that have not been celebrated on the floor at Round Ball to come to a KU event, take in a game in Allen Fieldhouse or at Memorial Stadium, meet a former player, and then they get a $5,000 check at the end of the night, which is pretty cool too. So it's been a really fulfilling endeavor. Some of my best friends in the world are the people that I get to work with on this thing each and every year, to see the selflessness and the dedication of those that give so much of their time and talents to be a part of this. And then to see the impact of the student athletes that are now grown men, some of which are 20 years removed from their KU careers. And they realize, wow, I still do have a lot of impact and platform to give back from. I still have a large position of influence. And that's really rewarding too, to see that and to see them want to give back from that. So it's certainly turned into one of the biggest blessings in my life. And I've always promised anybody who's asked when they say, man, how long can you keep this thing going? We'll do Round Ball so long as I have air in my lungs, because
I love it.
Not a better 3 days out of the year that I get to be a part of. And certainly it's a year-round process to pull off those 72 hours. But man, it puts wind in our sails and gives an extra lift to us all that we have a chance to work with it.
And I love that enthusiasm that you
Yeah.
have about it, is you can just feel it and see it, and it's wonderful, completely altruistic. And yeah, being a previous Round Ball recipient, it's really amazing. And it's pretty cool. Once you're like a Round Ball family, you always are. So like we still get invited every year to come back, to Round Ball and get to attend. And it's not like, you do it and then they're done. Like you're part of the community, and you guys check in with us, and it's a really cool opportunity. Really cool is really downplaying it. It's amazing.
Well, if you don't mind me saying it, Erica Souter, who I know has become a dear friend,
Yeah.
she does such an amazing job as our family liaison, and she's the mom of one of our original Round Ball beneficiaries, Jaden, who sadly, went home to heaven at the end of her cancer fight. Happy that she's in heaven, sadly that she's not still with us, but what Erica and Jason have done through Baby J's Legacy of Hope and through their partnership with the Round Ball Classic, it not only allows us to make the event bigger and better every single year, but it adds that personal touch of somebody that knows exactly what these moms and dads are. Not just some folks with empathy or sympathy as to the plight and the strife and the stress that they're under, but folks that have actually been in the trenches and heard those horrible words, your child has cancer, and they can really empathize more so than any of the rest of us who can only begin to imagine what you've gone through, Shailene, as someone who's been in the fight. So, I just want to make sure we give Erica and Jason a ton of love in that regard. And we have so many volunteers and board members that mean so much to making this thing run each and every year.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where did your inspiration for this derive from?
Great question, Brittany. I was 25 at the time, and I was loving life as a sportscaster, but I was feeling a little bit unfulfilled, that I wasn't quite making the impact on the community or leaving the type of legacy that I wanted to leave. And it sounds morbid, but I kind of asked myself a question: if I got hit by a truck tomorrow and this was it, like, how would I be remembered? What was my true impact or lasting legacy? And about that time, I'd read a book called Roaring Lambs. It talks about how God elevates people to positions of influence far beyond ministry or full-time philanthropy. It could be people working in journalism like I was, in the entertainment and arts industries, in politics, in anything, business, finance, whatever. The question is, where you're planted in that moment, who are the people around you that you have impact and influence through? What are your resources? What are your connections? All that. And so as a 25-year-old sports director running a 3-hour daily sports talk radio show, I started to think about, what's my platform? Who are my connections in this? And I had a Rolodex full of former KU basketball players that we got on a regular basis to talk sports with. Why not call those guys and have them come together in the name of a great cause? And there was a very original cancer fighter named Brandon White, whose father-in-law approached me, the late, great Paul Gray. He just passed away a couple of years ago. He was a pastor here in town. And he said, hey, my daughter and my son-in-law need some help. Do you think there's something you could do through your radio show to raise money for them? Maybe like a telethon on the radio, a radioathon. And I thought, we could probably do something better than that, because I was reading this book at the same time. And again, it challenges you to think about who are your contacts and how can you collaborate with them. And so I thought, man, if we could get 15 or 20 of these guys back and we sell out a high school gym, we could do a lot more with that than a couple of hours of giving away stuff on a radio show. And the first game was very humble beginnings. We sold $5 tickets and $1 hot dogs. We probably had about 1,000 people there. I think the rosters consisted of maybe 16 total players that were within drivable distance. You fast forward 15 years, and now we fly guys in and we put them up in hotels, and it's a full weekend of fundraising and fun and fellowship. And now we have 50 to 60 guys that come back. And like you mentioned, we've been pretty blessed with the money we've been able to raise. We go from very humble, modest beginnings to last year, 340,000 raised after expenses. So that's pretty exciting. And
that just gave me goosebumps.
Yeah.
That's such a beautiful story.
It is.
Oh, thank you. But so much of that goes to the generosity of the donors that step up huge annually, businesses that have given of their resources. Because one thing that I set out at the beginning when we first started doing this to make sure was that whatever our expenses were, they were absolutely bare minimum. So much of the stuff you see, like the posters or the tickets that are printed, that's donated by Terry Jacobson and Printing Solutions. The T-shirts each and every year, Chris Piper steps up and comes through for us in that regard. And we're so grateful for what they've been able to bring. And there's just so many partners in town that, whether they're giving of their time, talents, or resources, have helped us to keep the expenses down and the overall donation amount up with increase every single year, blessing every single year. So hugely grateful to places like that have been with us since day one. And, if I start listing them all off, I'm going to leave people out, but no doubt we're grateful for all of them, including Randy Arnold, who has done so much to help us with labeling and printing. And I'll tell you what, it's an amazing collaborative team effort where we probably have 20 people that work year round on this thing, but probably 15 other businesses that donate one thing or another to make it happen each and every year. And it would be remiss if I didn't, point just what a huge collaboration it is with all of these people. And you know what, if you want to see exactly which businesses, log on to our website, rockchalkroundballclassic.com, and show up to the game, and you'll see how this is a community supported event, because so much of the community has rolled up their sleeves and dug in with us to work on it each and every year. And we're immensely grateful for that.
Fantastic. And then I know it's shown locally, but for our listeners nationwide, when that's on, can they stream it or can they donate? Can you check it out outside of the Kansas, Missouri area?
That's a great question. So we will have a replay of the broadcast through our website, rockchalkroundball.com, but we have TV affiliates set up across the state that carry it. And they'll carry it all summer long, not just on game night. So I know you guys have a big reach coast to coast, and I would again direct folks to rockchalkroundballclassic.com. And most of your listeners that are local know what Rock Chalk is all about. That's the most famous chant in all of college athletics. Our Jayhawks here at KU, the rock, the limestone, the buildings, campuses buildings rather, were made of back in the 1800s, the chalky limestone texture to it. And of course, Jayhawk, the best mascot in all of sports. The Round Ball Classic name from there is just, the basketball nature of the event. But Rock Chalk, roundballclassic.com. That's where you can find all kinds of information and a chance to tune in and all of the above.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing that and educating everybody on it. Like we obviously know how amazing it is, but I think it's great to spread that and let everybody know. And I love the comparison of the resiliency of the kiddos to the athletes, and how typically you might think the athletes would be the star, but they're not. It's the kiddos. And I love that. Yeah.
It's amazing when you see the athletes responding to the kids.
Oh, yeah.
I'll tell you one quick story. We had a child. he was a young man, really. He was 17 years old, named Levi Ross. This was 9 years ago. And Levi had a huge tumor on the back of his neck and the base of his skull that was inoperable and had metastasized to the point where he knew he had months to live. And it wasn't a cancer story that was going to end in him fully beating it. So his final year of life wish was to get to drive down the California coastline on Highway 1 with his best friend, to take that road trip that some of us have been lucky enough to take in our youth and adolescence. And he didn't have a car to do it. And his big thing wasn't, can you raise money to help with my medical bills? I'd like a car to take this trip. And so I called my buddy Miles Schneer at Crown Automotive, another great community partner that's so involved with us. And I said, listen, I'm never going to ask you to rig anything. Everything's on the up and up here. But if there was ever a time to have the fix in, we need to rig the raffle where we pull out a person's name for the car and make sure it's this kid. As he said, you know what? I'm going to give you 2 cars. We'll have our normal half-court shot contest car, and then we'll have the rigged competition where we draw Levi's name. And what made this cool was, round ball is all about coming together, as I said, collaborating, cooperating, working as a team. And so knowing that Levi, based on the tumor, wasn't going to be able to fully shoot a shot from the free throw line, let alone half court, we said, let's make this teamwork thing. And he gets to pick any Jayhawk on the roster to throw an alley-oop pass to. And if the player completes the alley-oop dunk, he wins the car. And Levi had no idea this was going to happen. He was completely in the dark. We draw Levi's name randomly, and Levi comes out there, and you can just see he's like so nervous and overwhelmed. Am I really going to have to shoot a half-court shot? I'm like, you know what, Levi, how about you move up to the three-point line? I think we can do better. Why don't you come up to the free throw line? Round ball is all about teamwork. Why don't you pick a player to throw the lob to? And when it became increasingly clear that he wouldn't have to take a shot, he just had to throw a pass, his smile got as big as you've ever seen. It makes Sports Center's top 10 plays, which was so cool. But then the best part of the whole thing was when you see the impact the kids have on the players because of the inspirational efforts out of Levi Ross on that particular night, just to be there in the face of his circumstances and to make a whole gym light up and not have a dry eye in the place. I tell that story as an example of the really rewarding feeling it gives those of us that volunteer and work on this thing when you see the players realize the magnitude of their impact, and when you see the impact of the kids, or in this case, the young man, on one of the celebrities. It's pretty awesome. I mean, it's as good as anything we get the chance to be a part of. And so that's why we keep doing this every year, and it kind of feeds off of each other. The players are inspired by the kids, the fans show up for the players, but everybody goes home happy, inspired, and feeling like they had a chance to make a difference.
That's a wonderful story.
Yeah, great use of your platform, and you're definitely leaving a wonderful legacy. And it's not just the Round Ball Classic that you're doing. I can't think of one children's charity you haven't been involved in Lawrence particularly. So it's like I said, a great use of your platform, and thank you for everything you're doing for all these kids in the community and the people in this community.
Oh, thank you, Brittany. I really appreciate that. It's a huge blessing to get a chance to lend my time to whatever cause asks. And if anybody watches this today, even if they're not in the area, if there's some way that we can possibly be involved, and by we I mean me, by all means, let me know. If you're a cancer fighting family that has a young son or daughter that is impacted by this, and you'd like to nominate them for either our benevolence fund or future Round Ball Classic beneficiary consideration, again, check out the website for more information there. But blessed to be a blessing, big believer into whom much is given, much is expected. And Lord knows I've been given much. So it's my calling and duty to try to turn that around and multiply it. And thankfully, thanks to shows like yours and great people like you two, we have a chance to tell those stories and hopefully attract more people that might be in need of a little bit of help. So if there's something you felt inspired hearing here today and listening to this or watching this, that you think I can help a cause you're affiliated with, whether it's as an MC or just somebody that brings some positivity and sunshine, by all means, please do reach out and contact me. I'd love to connect.
Yeah, because what you guys are doing is actually directly aiding that family's ability to be resilient through a tough time.
No doubt.
comes full circle. That's what you're doing, whether, financially, emotionally, spiritually, friendship wise, you're absolutely fueling that resilience. And that's what it's all about.
That's what it's all about.
Fantastic. Brian, you were a treasure to have today. I really appreciate you taking the time out and hopping on, and it's absolutely wonderful.
Thank you both so much for having me. It's neat to see you guys putting your talents on display and impacting so many people through providing stories of resiliency and inspiration. I think that you're going to see a ripple effect as the months go by and the podcast gets picked up by more and more folks. I think you're going to see the impact you're having and draw great satisfaction and fulfillment through that too. So
right. We need some of his energy. He
Yes.
had this idea that it turned just, we need some of that. We need that mojo.
Yes.
I pull my energy and my sunshine from kids like Easton. So tell her hello, and see you both outside of this real soon.
Right. Thanks so much, Brian.
Thank you both. Rock chalk.
Heck yeah, rock chalk.